old friend. Good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning to you, Barfield. How's it going, buddy?
Well, we've been for years. We've sit here early every morning. I'm talking 5 days a week, typically 2 or 3, 4, 5 days a week. You know how what's going on, and we have some of the deepest conversations with our friends out there. Some of them get, they get wild and crazy, and some of them are just deep. Most of them are just deep now. There's, what I'm saying. So we do a lot of that in the morning. And, we've been talking about just trying to do like a little bit of a morning show, at least for us. It doesn't have to be for anyone listening to us, but we figured we'd do one. And, of course, we were about to go into the show. And, of course, there's a trash truck, garbage truck, what do you call them, waste truck going behind me back there. I'm on my front porch. And anyway, so I'm walking around out here, and we were talking, and you mentioned this, that, and the other about back when we were teenagers. We were talking about something, maybe criminality or something, and we had left a lot of that behind way a long time ago. Yeah. That frame of mind you're in as a teenager, I mean, you don't intend to be criminal, but you are, stuff you're doing, vagrancy, walking where you're not supposed to be, testing the bounds of authority. I mean, that's just kind of being a teenager, But we were talking, and it's we've always said this, but I've never put it in such terms, and this is very just, plebeian terms. It's not complicated to understand, but, you and I both have said the exact same thing over the years, but so we've been out of high school now for over 30 years, like 32 years. And during that whole period of time, I hear people talking about, oh, wow, man, we just did the most wild thing. We did such and such. I'm like, okay, yeah, well, I did that as a teenager. And then, there was this thing, or somebody else would say something else, like, I did that too. And then that scenario repeats out, for 32, 33 years. And it just goes on and on and on and on and on. And I'm thinking to myself, my God, what dense packing of time was going on whenever we were teenagers? I don't know if everyone has that experience or not. I know that, but now, like, some of my years just, they just, fly by so quick. Like 2022 has been one of the fastest years ever. I don't remember starting, and it's already almost done, But, back in those mid-'80s, to me, from like, say, hell, the whole 80s, from 81 on to 89, was just, it was forever. I mean, I wonder if that's is that your experience of that time too, or what do you think?
Well, I mean, I think, just because of our time period, again, I think it's going to be kind of one of those Gen X things. That's just my opinion. It's, because of the fact that we had so much childhood packed in there of, none of the distractions. It was like, y'all go out and play, and then we didn't come back in until the lights started, hollering or something. Of course we did, but I just think we lived more because we didn't have as many distractions. So a lot of the things that we did as teenagers that we considered, yes, immature, borderline criminal, just trying to be that little bit of rebelliousness, we did in the time period that everybody goes, well, they're just teenagers, So I think it just seems so long because we had a lot of that all packed in to just those few years. Well, some of the ones I've talked to the last 5-10 years. I mean, they're like over 20 and 21 and maybe higher, and they're just either just doing or still doing that kind of stuff today, type thing. So I don't know if we just did more in a smaller span, or if it's because of the distractions of the day, it's just taking longer for those folks to stop doing that. It's got to be I don't know if necessarily know if it's a maturity issue or it's just a spoiled, I don't really think much more outside of me attitude, because you got so many other things that go on that still point to just, lack of responsibilities and, that kind of thing. It happens now that, it happened then, but it just seems, I don't know, maybe more out there now. Kind of like some of the folks that just, they don't feel like they're getting their fair shake, but it's kind of like, well, you got to put forth some effort too. It's available. You just got to look for it. Somebody can't just go, here you go, fill this out, and we'll see what we can do for you. So
hey,
I don't know, man. Go ahead.
Let me throw something at you.
Sure.
Since 2001, I have wanted to write a book. I mean, I've even got a title for it. I'll tell you the title for it. It's called The Graying of Generation X. 2001 is kind of when I started working with it. I've never written it, because it's something that I think is still unfolding, which is, Generation X. And I've been studying it for a long time, and we've been talking about it recently because we are the sandwich generation. We're small. The baby boomers are the ones that's older than us. And then right after us is what's called the Millennials or Generation Z. Mostly they're called Y. I'm sorry, they're called Generation Y or the Millennials. Most people just call them the Millennials. And then after that, you have the ones that like are my children. And then there's one after that, actually. But the one after that is I think they call them Generation Z. That's what they did call them, from like 1997 until like 2012 or something like that. But anyway, Generation X was the last generation. You read about us. We're the very middle right now. We're the people that's in their 50s and 60s, 40s, 50s and 60s, up in that area. And we are we're at our prime, all of us, in terms of making money. In fact, we make Generation X generates 67% of all the income. Of course, Generation X includes people like the owner of Amazon, Bezos, and of course it includes everybody's favorite fanboy, or fan, or demagogue, Elon Musk. But we were really the last generation, though, all of us, even though everybody I just mentioned are talking about computers, and all of us, computers are instrumental in our life. We lived at a time before computers. And I think, and the only thing that I can think of that makes any sense at all is that we lived in that time before you had a cell phone in your pocket. But we've also lived, we lived the first half of our life with no cell phone, and the second half has been with one. So like most people, a lot of people that are younger than us, they've had it their whole life. But, really, we were born in the 70s, early 70s, and we didn't really see anything until the early 90s in terms of like computers. And really, it was the mid-90s, like 95, 96, before I got a little flip phone, a little, Motorola, flip phone thing. It was like Track 4 or some kind of shit like that. But anyway, it was a neat little phone, and ever since then, I've had one. I've had one in my pocket ever since then. So, but now before that, I didn't think about it. The world was different. You when you don't have the backup of the phone in your pocket, it's a different kind of freedom. You're not distracted. You're where you're at, and we've always been heard.
Yeah, you're untethered. Well, I was just saying you're totally untethered. I mean, because can you imagine? I mean, as an example, whenever we got to being teenagers and stuff, we had a friend that lived in Hamburg. His name was, Bobby. I ain't gonna say his last name. And you and I, and stuff, and computers was just coming around, and this and that, and there still wasn't no cell phones or nothing. I think maybe there was a bag phone that people would like, I'll buy you this for an absolute emergency, and it costs like $500 a month to operate or something. But during those times where we were, I guess, coming into who we would be, now I have to, of course, talk about from our perspective, but all of our generation, we still had that, we got to find something else to do. So I remember, hey, all of us stayed together one night at your place, and we got a couple of shotguns, and we went walking, down the side of the highway, and at that time, nobody really thought much of it. I mean, we got stopped, they would just be like, well, we're going some coon hunting, or whatever. Now, if you do it, of course, you're going to be arrested. But neither here nor there. We went and we did things that, that was just growing things. I mean, yeah, we know how stupid it was now, be like, man, that was crazy to just be half stumbling around out there in the freaking dark with one flashlight and two shotguns, you know. But, you know, we did those things. We went and camped down at somebody's camp at the mouth of the creek and walked around and, you know, I mean, we lived, you know, and I guess that was what I was trying to get to is during those teenage years we're talking about, I think we packed so much more in there because we didn't have the distractions everybody after that has from the time they get old enough to get into those years, you know, is what I'm thinking. Now, that's just me in my opinion.
Well, you know, you throw out two interesting stories there. And, of course, you know, one of them being another topic that we could probably float to for a little bit. It's been big lately, you know. I mean, there was a time whenever I was a child growing up, and man, I always used to hear about people seeing UFOs or whatever they see, you know, out there in the wilderness. They've, you know, most time it's from a crazy uncle or cousin that's been out there, and you know they're drinking, and you know what did they see, you know? But that one night you mentioned that we were walking down the highway, and then we had a dog with us, and we were raccoon hunting is what we were doing, as I recall. But anyway, so we went out there. We was trying to, quote unquote, tree a coon.
Yes.
But we got up close to this big tree, and the way I remember it is that of some kind of a effervescent light of some sort was at the ground, and it lit up really blue and just shot straight up. Now, I've heard all kinds of explanations for it. You know, I've heard people say there's like little gas bubbles around it that erupt sometimes. But people see them. They're on film. I mean, you know, you can see the things happening. And, you know, other people have said that it could be just, it could have been a trick on our eyes. It could have been like something going in front of the moon because it was a full moon. You know, who knows? I mean, there's all kinds of, you know, it could have been, we thought it was closer than it was. But, I remember it. I don't remember it being like a meteor. I remember it being starting from the ground, being about just very little and then growing up to about 3 feet big and then just evaporating into the rest of the tree, which had no leaves on it because it was wintertime. And then, you know, but I have always in my mind said, well, either I didn't see what I thought I did or it was some kind of a natural phenomenon. I didn't automatically go to, well, you know, it was, you know, the good Lord giving me a message. I didn't go to it with a UFO or nothing like that. But I've always just been the kind of brain that I just can't see in my mind. I just can't understand something coming here. Now, as a kid, you know, for a little bit there I did, but then in my brain soon I'm like, well, that's just too far to go, and I think you'd know about it. You know, the president would talk about it. You know, if there was, you know, UFOs and aliens running around. But you know, of course, you know, now that I'm a little bit older, I go, well, maybe not so much because we've been seeing little bitty releases here and there. Of course, I still don't believe it. I still think that everything we have here is either some kind of a weird phenomenon or we looked at it differently than what we should have. But there's a big trend on it right now. A lot of people want to feel spooky. It's kind of like, you know, you did when you were a kid, but then you get older, it's like all the mystery's gone out of life, you know, and you kind of become kind of flat and you look for other things to entertain you. You know, and it's kind of like we're all focused on these phones and this, you know, these current event stuff going on now too. And, you know, fires and floods. And I guess that maybe all that stuff's been going on forever. It's just that we're so connected with news now that we just know about it. This is kind of changing topics. What do you think? I mean, what do you think about, you know, the interaction of these computers, the way we used to be, now where we're at, and these catastrophes and political upheavals and all this stuff? I mean, that's bound to change people's blood pressure, don't you think? Because you're once worried about a tree out there with your shotgun or your whatever you were doing, vagrant criminality, or, you know, riding the roads because gas was 10 cents a gallon. You could, you know, pick up your friends or your girlfriend or whatever and go for a ride and go out and, you know, or sitting around staring at a telephone or a mobile phone at Facebook all the time. What do you think? What do you think about it? How does that impact people?
Well, I mean, it makes a huge difference in terms of, you know, again, from the perspective, we're in a pretty rural area, considered mostly rednecks by anybody who would look at it, and how we spend our weekends, because, without the phone and stuff, you actually had to, either go cruising, to find people to interact with and actually socialize. Well, because everybody had to do it, nobody really wanted to start no damn trouble, because that shut it down for everybody type things. Of course, now these days, it's totally different. Either they stay on the phone and just, don't go out, or they'll go out and everybody just, I guess they've lost the ability to have the control of, well, we don't want no bunch of trouble, because, we like being able to hang out, because this is the only thing we have. We don't have cell phones and internet and So, like, of course, in our case, we stayed out in the boonies, and we'd go, find some old burnable material. I'm not going to say what type it was, and we'd go down to an old gravel pit back off, in the thing. And, there'd be, 5, 10, 12 of us, and it might get a few more. And then, of course, inevitably the real rednecks would show up, and, oh, man, y'all ruining this.
Hey,
and so then, go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. If you guys, I
well,
to an end there. I'm sorry. Go
ahead.
Well,
I am, but I mean, what I was going to say was, and then of course you'd have the ones that, that were like-minded, that, well, hey, they like to party redneck style like that. And you had that 5, 10 of us there. It was like, I ain't into all that. We'd go find somewhere else to go,
Yeah.
So, but anyway, go ahead, man.
I think let's drift to that topic for a minute, because I think that's interesting. In fact, I've been seeing lots of little, YouTube. I've been driving a lot lately, so I've been just listening to, various podcasts, and there's all kinds of information on YouTube. It's just totally fascinating to me, what all is out there. But anyway, so this one thing was a 10 things you need to know about, living in Arkansas before you move here. And this guy went through, and of course his introduction was that this is a very red state. These are people that are, they've got specific beliefs, and a lot of it is not really the beliefs, is just what they feel about people. We're kind of a rowdy group down here, at least from the outside. But this guy went on to say that when you got around people, we're really, yes sir, no sir. We're not trying to fight with nobody. We'll have a good time as long as you want to have a good time. If you want to fight, we'll fight too. But I hear that about Southern people, and of course I've been thinking about it, because I'm a Southerner, and I've been, I lived in Southeast Arkansas for the majority of my life. Wouldn't want to be anywhere else unless I could, unless I could, I guess. No, I like where I'm at. I always move back home or take home. But that's just me, and I think that's part of the culture. I mean, really, Southern people are just. Not all of us are like some people portray us. I mean, a lot of us. I mean, there's a whole bunch of us that are. I'm not going to just say educated, because to me, education means all kinds of different things. If you are well read, is what I call it. In fact, all these motivation things I've listened to over the years say that there's no such thing as an educated person. You're either getting educated or you're not. You had to be growing or dying, in other words. But I think there's some validity to that. I think that people that I think it's with anything that you don't understand. Like if you go around, African American people, not in a zone where there's a huge mixing of people where everybody coexists, but into an area where that's that's mostly black. And we have several towns around in our area that have a black population. And I mentioned stopping in one to purchase gas the other day, and this one dude was like, "Oh, you're brave to stop there." I'm like, I mean, Jesus. I mean, but so there's it's the same thing as people talking about Southerners. Southerners are brave to go down there with those gun carrying crazy son of a bitches. But I'm gonna tell you what, this is what's so weird about it. I'm looking back, and we're talking about the early 90s era, really before cell phones, and everybody was sitting around watching certain news channels. This was a blue area. This area that I'm in right now that's called a red state, Arkansas. Of course, we voted for Bill Clinton, but he wasn't the first Democrat we put in office. And up until just a few years ago, all of our state representatives and federal representatives, the senators and the representatives from the state to the government, to the federal government, House and Senate, they were all Democrats. So this is a new, for at least the southern part of the Arkansas that we're in now. I mean, this is, being red is new for us. So it hasn't always been that way. And, of course, I've seen a lot of places that were red that are now blue and, like maybe even Texas, kind of purple now. Who knows what's going to happen to Texas over time. So it's kind of a morphing thing, But so some of the people that I know right now, in fact, I didn't vote for Bill Clinton. I voted for Ross Perot. I was, a young, had a very specific brain on me. I was like very rebellious still, I'm voting for Ross Perot. I ain't voting for Bill Clinton or whoever else. And,
but now at the time, just to comment on that real quick, is, kind of like what everybody today, the orange guy, they was like, man, we want somebody to run it like a business. See, Ross Perot was our version of that because he was a businessman, And I remember thinking, well, maybe that's how the country should be ran. But if he ran it like a business, he didn't run it retardedly. He was a very serious businessman, not the orange orangutan. So just a comment for the contrast. Okay. So please continue.
Well, I mean, and of course, it's more radical now. And that's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, it is more radical now.
Because people are sitting there and they're consuming news channels that I'm a person that I'd rather not talk about this kind of stuff, but I think it's so crazy right now. Southerners and all this following stuff. But I mean, people, instead of doing like you were raised to do, which is to go outside and turn the TV off, or at least do like your papa did and study more than one channel. My papa, the way it was set up, he could watch ABC, CBS, and NBC News. And he was today's standards, uneducated, but he knew that there's different stories and different ways of telling them on different channels. And, of course, people right now are so dialed into one or the other. They're watching MSNBC and eating tofu, or they're sitting over there watching Fox News polishing their gun, And I'm sitting there thinking, my God. I mean, if you don't think that stuff is impacting you.
Yeah, well, I mean, just kind of a thing with just to kind of leave that part, but it's still touching, is like, look at the thing like Jackson, Mississippi right now, there's no water for weeks and this, and there's fear it gets out as to whose side is to blame before the midterms. In the meantime, the poor people of Jackson, Mississippi, are stuck with no water, boil notices, can't do anything, And so I just really hope that they can hurry up and get that issue resolved anyway for the people of Jackson.
Well, I mean, there's all kinds of things like that going on. Of course, ultimately that's a red state, and so is Kentucky. And of course, this is so weird. And this is like, I heard both of their governors giving a lot of props to the one that everybody's, that's on the other side in the midterms here. He's up there. Biden, whenever that Kentucky flooding and stuff was going on, the Kentucky governor was like, well, and he was a Republican. He's like, I've never seen a president respond so quickly and so adequately as what this president has done. Thank you, Mr. President Biden. And then down there in Mississippi, it was the same thing. It was another red state. But now the contrast is that the orange one you were talking about, every time a blue state got in trouble, the first thing he would say was, well, I guess you didn't spend your money right, or something, something like that, and would tussle before help was sent out. And of course, people see that. I mean, I see it. Like I said, I'm not really a Democrat or Republican. I go for whatever makes common sense, And of course, I'm not a billionaire either. So I got to have something that helps the working man, and that's the way I look at it. Is I want things that help. I want the next generation, because we all can't be rich. We can all have a decent life, and we know what that answer is. There's enough research out there that tells you what a decent life is, and there's no reason why we can't create it. The only reason why we can't create a decent life for most people is, and we have done a pretty good job, but we could do better. There's still ways that they're just taking inordinate amounts of money from people. A lot of it has to do with the technological changes that we've been seeing going on. And of course, a lot of it is tied to medical stuff. The rate of dying is, up until the past couple of years, is, even now it's not that bad, but it has, our lifespan has really went down in the past few years, like 4 years or something in the past couple of years. But in general, though, it's still pretty high compared to most cultures in the past. And, of course, whenever we start talking about medical stuff, we talk about the expense of it, and we talk about, what it costs. And, I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting debate, about medical stuff. We've been debating it for a long time now. Of course, we give it to old people, and of course, people talk about a single payer system. People talk about a system like it is. I mean, the most expensive thing I have, and I don't mind paying it. It costs the shit out of me, but my health insurance to cover my family, and I have to have family insurance. I can't have just me or me and my spouse or me and a child. I have me, my spouse, and children. It costs the hell out of me. In fact, if I really look at it, medical costs cost more than my home, my car, everything. And, a lot of people are making a lot of money. We've been talking about this, this world that we're living in now. It's like it's okay for capitalism, but you have, even the most capitalistic capitalists I know that made lots of money are like, man, you got to slow us down. You got to, because of the fact that, when you start seeing those dollar signs or power, anything, it just adds up, and you want more and more and more, and you'll take it. It becomes a game. It becomes, how can you figure out how to make more? Even if it's just shaving pennies off the tax bill or whatever it is, it's still a game. And, and to people that like that game, they get involved in it. Instead of doing criminality, they're involved in that. But, and of course, what this very capitalistic guy was talking about is that, CEO pay, back in, say, 1970, by the time we were being born 50-something years ago, you're sitting there and the CEO pay was like 15 times what the average worker pay is. And now it's 1,300 times. That's across all companies. But some of them are even more than that. I mean, they're just gigantic. And I'm sure that what they do is absolutely wonderful. But, I mean, is it really that wonderful that we're paying public companies that much, and us as a stockholder, I'm giving him that much? Is he really doing it for me? Is this, but then, of course, you ask that question all throughout society. We've changed the way we do things, and of course, I see people like Joe Biden are like, hey, he's one of those ones that want to slow down. He's like, hey, Jack, this is a bunch of malarkey. There's enough for all of us out there. You people are taking too damn much. You got everything there is. You own 15 fucking islands. Why don't you give a little bit more to the people out there and under his watch, Inflation has gone up. Yes, there's the people rebelling against it, but so is, wages. I mean, I've seen it is working with all kinds of industries. I've seen wages increase by a dramatic amount. But, of course, right after the Spanish flu in the early 1900s, 100 years ago, there was this exact same thing happen. In fact, that helped because there were so many people that had died that the people that could show up and go to work and show out when they got there, they got paid more because it was hard to find people. And that's kind of where we're at right now. We're in this situation where people are, they can move around. I mean, we see people jumping. If they're making $15 an hour and they have somewhere over there that's offering $20 to start and then $1,000 sign-on bonus, I mean, what are you going to do? What you going to do for your family? Because there ain't nothing getting any cheaper out there for sure. But here's my last thing on it. Technology, all of this is probably fueled by technology. I mean, there's so much technology going on. There's so many new ways of doing jobs. In fact, a lot of people, they're not going to work, for somebody. They've been watching TikTok and they haven't figured out how to make money. They're not scared to. A lot of people that grew up a long time ago, like, well, that there's for somebody else right there is what they always told people where I grew up at. Right there's, that's that stuff that rich folks do right there, around some people. And of course, you hear that from all kinds of people everywhere. But now this Generation Z are like, bullshit. I want some of that money too. What do you think?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing is that, I've kind of noticed there is, like a lot of the people who are, I'm going to say, like Bezos and Musk and stuff, I mean, those stand out, and there's a whole bunch others that are, the Gen X type thing that are, making that that level of money, that you're talking about. Then you got to back it down. But I think there's a whole bunch of those middle of the road, very successful people. I think the biggest majority of the people that are very successful, but in the Gen X thing, they are quietly just living the good life. They found a way to make good money, and it may be in technology, it may be just a control thing or whatever, but they just want to they found that happy. And so I don't know, is there not enough of the Gen X type people of our age, because this is the perfect age as such for some Gen X type folks to be trying to get into offices and stuff, because they got enough age on them and stuff. But it just seems that it's all the extremes on each side. And, of course, a lot of what I think the current issues with the fast food stuff is going to, how they're always, we can't get enough people. Well, everybody's constantly seeing how, tearing stories and shootouts and, people going crazy in the restaurant. Well, hell, I think they're freaking scared to go to damn work out there. So there's always a damn shortage on this very low end, I think. People get in there and they'll work just long enough to, I'll well, then, of course, the shortage is there, and they can go take them a couple of weeks off, come back. I probably get the job back, And I think there's a lot of that going on. But there's going to be the ones that want to work that are doing exactly what you're saying. They're going to try to find the best niche, for them to fit in for the best pay. And if you want the person that will come to work, you're going to have to show some cash dollars, because they know they're in demand. If the reverse capitalism in the form of the people who will do it, they can demand better wages. And if they ain't willing to pay it, okay. And, I'll find something for doing whatever I'm wanting to do. Or I'll do like he was talking about. I'll find something else to make me enough money, TikTok, YouTube, any number of things. And, we'll invent ways. That's what I'm trying to say, I guess, is most Gen X that have any kind of drive can invent ways to make money and live a comfortable life. It ain't going to be extravagant. It's not going to be, hey, take a trip to Italy every 2 days, but,
Yeah.
So I guess what it is my question with all of that is there too many of our generation, the Gen X span there, that doesn't have enough ambition to have got into offices? Because, you look at the age of who's in the Senate and the Congress and da-da-da. See, they stayed in there, and there's not many of the Gen X crowd in there. So was they kept out, or did we not have the ambition to get in there and kind of keep the things the way we wanted? What do you think?
Well, well, just to take that for just a second, well, older people have always stayed in power. They don't want to let their stuff go, so we've been fighting that stuff. See, that's the thing that I think that what is so freaking me out about stuff that's going on now. It's like back in the 80s whenever we were talking about teenagers and stuff. I remember people didn't worship politicians. In fact, that would be any kind of authority, people in positions of power were, they were the enemy. And I think that with social media, we know what Elon Musk thinks about this, that, and the other. And he's a very powerful individual. Now, he acts like he does things, like he says, well, I like the right half of the left and the left half of the right. I mean, he says it does all the right things that people like the rest of us want to hear. And we're talking about people that are informed. Just like a little bit ago, I said I couldn't think of the word, but I was like, well, I wouldn't say educated because educated means all kinds of different things, but informed is probably where it's at. Informed people. And I think that's one of the things, even though I think it concerns me, back to my assertion with people sitting around watching television all the time, and everywhere I go I see the same channel playing, and it says something different than every other channel I'm watching the same. I'm like, at first I'm like, well, yeah, maybe they are. Maybe they have the inside scoop and they know how bad these other people are. But if you take your microscope and you dial it back a little bit, and you'll see that they're all the same. They're just got their own little game going on. And the best that you can do is to push the hell out of them to make good things for us. I'm upset that we're hanging on to the past with it, and we got to just move forward. That's it. Because, come on. Is this really worth fighting over? Who knows? But I know one thing, though, that hopefully it'll all kind of blend into space here before long and everything get running well. And you know what? I'm getting a bunch of little information here, so I think I need to fade off into the daylight. How about you? You want to think about it?
Yeah. That's all right. We'll talk to you later, man.
All right. Have a happy Friday.
All right, Saturday, buddy.
Whatever you're doing.
Whatever it is. Yeah, I know, right?